I'm Jay Kingley, co-founder and CEO of Maven, your host of Fractionals Unplugged. I'm joined today by Jessica Schulz, a Fractional Chief CRO CMO, that's also known as a Chief Revenue Officer and Chief Marketing Officer. Jess works with venture-backed B2B SaaS companies, typically with 1 to 5 million in annual revenue. She helps CEOs transition out of founder-led sales, right sizes their go-to-market strategy, and builds the system, teams, and playbooks to build their marketing and sales functions. Like me, Jess is based in Miami, Florida. Welcome, Jess.
Thank you for having me.
Are you feeling undervalued and stuck in the frustrating cycle of an inconsistent pipeline and income, despite consistently delivering exceptional results for your clients? Maven's proven 97% done-for-you client acquisition system transforms your expertise into a steady income of $300,000 to $500,000 a year, providing lasting financial security and establishing you as the go-to resource for your clients' toughest challenges. Join Jay Kingley, CEO of Maven, and his guests as they share actionable insights on today's episode of the Fractionals Unplugged podcast.
Jess, I'm the founder of a B2B SaaS company that enables AI agents to provide customer support for healthcare providers. I've gone out and signed up some hospitals and large provider groups to use my software. I just closed on a $5 million Series A funding round. I have product market fit, but I'm not sure how to get my revenues to the next level. I feel like I'm becoming the pinch point in continuing to grow our revenues at the rate we're going to need to in order to raise our next round of funding. Now, we bump into each other at a local networking event. We introduce each other and I say, "Yes, what do you do?" I'm going to give you a maximum of 60 seconds. Go.
Great to meet you, and congratulations on all the success. If you raise that round, that means you've definitely shown traction, you have revenue, you definitely have strong signs of product market fit if you're raising a Series A, so congratulations. What I see most with founders like you is that they have been the sole producer and seller up until this point, which is really important because you're the person that knows the company the best, your industry the best, the product the best. So you are the best person to get the company to this point. But now it's no longer scalable for you to be the sole producer. You really need to elevate yourself to become the CEO. And so making that transition from founder-led sales to hiring your first go-to-market team can be challenging to really make sure you set up those first hires for success. So what I come in and do is I help assess where the maturity of your current go-to-market. So do you have the right systems, procedures, processes, people? And if not, what do I think you need to put in place from a systems, processes, procedures, people perspective to remove yourself from the sales process and to really pass that baton to new team members that can be successful without you there every step of the way?
One of the things that I have learned, in fairness, the hard way, is one of the keys to success is making sure you are never on the critical path. So right on. Now, talk about your ICPs, and that's, for those who don't know, is short for Ideal Client Profiles. What do you look for when you meet them?
Yeah, so for me, because I do like to play in this founder-led sales transition inflection point, like that's what I feel like my secret sauce is. That usually means those companies are roughly between 1 and 5 million in revenue. To date, the founder's been the sole producer. They might have one account executive on the team, but normally not a team bigger than that. They usually don't have any established marketing presence, like either an in-house marketer or a lot of times even like any kind of marketing agency. So kind of no marketing presence. B2B is where my expertise lies. So if they are consumer-facing business, I'm just not the best person to help with that. It's a entirely different go-to-market strategy to go to consumers. And then I would say I've my personal background and experience, I've worked in banking for 8 years. I sold fintech. I sold HR tech. So a lot of my clients do tend to come from the financial services or healthcare and HR industries, just because I know those industries quite well. And those industries all have commonalities in that they're all highly regulated. generally very complex sales, something north of 50K in annual contract value, like a longer sales cycle. So those are the types of sales and marketing engagements that I'm most skilled at.
When you're thinking about those ideal clients, the ICPs, what is their most important, urgent, and valuable problem that ultimately leads to something that you can resolve? But I want you to give it to me from their perspective. What is that number one thing?
Profitability and scalability. So I just raised this money. Now I have pressure from my investors to spend it, and I need to spend it in a smart way that makes me more money. And I'm not sure exactly what that looks like. I know I need to make more money. I know I need to do it fast. A lot of times they'll have pressure to see 20 or 30% month over month growth. They don't know exactly what to do to generate those outcomes. And then again, they know they need to hand the baton off to sales and marketing folks, but they don't know exactly how to do that without affecting close rates and momentum. When you're handing the baton off to anyone in any scenario, there's going to potentially be a change in the conversion rates or the results. And so how do you minimize that risk during that transition? And again, how do you spend your money in the best possible way? So I think that's the most urgent issue they have, is make more money faster and spend my money in the right ways to do that.
Earlier in my career, I was a founder of a B2B tech company that took in a fair bit of funding from investors. And this is what I remember. In that negotiation, there was a lot of, but you guys believe in what you're doing. Your projections are a little conservative. Don't you think you can do better? Which caused us, of course, to amp up the hockey stick. The second thing I remember is the first $10,000 is a lot easier than the second, third, and fourth. And that growth pattern, of course, is not linear. You've got to go nonlinear, and it gets increasingly challenging. And I'm just thinking back to that set of emotions that I was dealing with at the stage that you're talking about, because I think every early stage company who fits your profile of an ICP has more or less the same, what I call the most important, urgent, and valuable problem. Talk about the emotional side of what you see in the founders when they're bringing you in, when they are faced with this problem that they don't know how to solve.
Pressure, like immense pressure, uncertainty. I think it's obviously emotional. So much of their blood, sweat, and tears has gone into the company, getting the company to this point, and having enough trust in someone else to take that baton. It's very hard for them to let go. They know they need to let go, but it's really hard to let go because you know that no one is going to care about it the same way you do as the founder. That's a fact. But we need to make it as simple and approachable as we can for those hires and construct their compensation incentives in a way that incentivizes the right behavior. But that's just a hard thing to do. It's your baby, and it's hard to let go of your baby. And again, it's just so much of your blood, sweat, and tears and emotions have gone into getting the company to this point. And now you're just under this immense pressure to take it to the next level. A lot of them have taken friends and family money too. So there's like the pressure of not just institutional investors, but people they love that trusted them and took a risk on them. I think there's reputational concerns, right? This doesn't work out. What's that going to mean for my reputation? So yeah, I think it's just immense pressure.
I remember it felt like a roller coaster where you would go from elation to being despondent in about 2 hours' time. You go from optimistic to frustrated. Some of my co-founders got angry at the investors because they felt like we were backed up against a wall. They didn't like me when I told them, well, we agreed. Like, it's sort of on us, right? So it's just this crucible that is the most insane ride that I've ever experienced. So we've got this problem that you've articulated. Can't get rid of it, but there's this pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. If I could get rid of it, what outcomes would I obtain that this most important, urgent, valuable problem is standing in the way?
I think once we remove that obstacle, it's getting founders back in their genius is how I refer to it a lot. When you're in founder-led sales mode, you're in the weeds and you're not acting like a C-suite executive. When this problem gets eradicated, I guess, what the best case world looks like is we have a fully functioning marketing team that is generating leads and producing results with input from the founder, but not micromanagement or day-to-day involvement. We have a sales team that's able to qualify deals and close deals without the founder being involved in every step of the process. We have a team that can, again, like generate pipeline and generate revenue with involvement from the founder so that the founder can, again, really step into their genius and step into their executive presence and really look at where does this company go next? What markets do we want to expand into next? What segments do we want to go after next? Really be the chief strategy officer of the company. That's what I think happens when we get all of these things right.
So let's go back to this important, urgent, and valuable problem. Because it's urgent, we know that they're not waiting around trying to solve it. They are proactively doing all sorts of things to solve it, and yet none of them are working. So talk to us about the types of things that companies try, but don't typically get them to where they want.
Sometimes they try to throw people at it. So I either see companies of this profile hire too senior or too junior, or just not prepare properly for the hire before they come on board. So not set them up for success. So with the too junior hire, you have a person that can run the plays if given a playbook. But if you don't have a playbook to give them, they can't build the playbook. So they hire that junior person and the person flops because there's no roadmap for them to follow. They hire the senior person that is pretty expensive, so starts to feel like a strain on cash flow right away, but can't produce results right away because none of these things happen overnight. And so then they start feeling the pressure of the cash burn, but not seeing the results right away, which gives them heartburn. And also sometimes those senior people have been removed from the day-to-day of selling. They've been managing teams and they've been working within organizations that have a lot of infrastructure and support. And so they're good in that environment. But to come into a Series A startup with limited resources, limited infrastructure, and you've now got to be the sales leader and the sales doer and the SDR for all, you have to be everything. A lot of those people haven't done that or don't want to do that anymore. And so they don't have that same roll up your sleeves, do everything kind of mentality, and they also don't work. Or I think founders with good intentions hire expensive agencies without getting the fundamentals right. If they don't have really strong clarity of who their ICP is, who their buyer persona is, what their competitive position is in the market, then they just go hire a $10,000 a month PR agency, and it doesn't really do much because there isn't clarity around who they're trying to target and what their position is. And so they just start spending all this money on ancillary marketing efforts like that without really having clarity about what it's going to drive or even knowing what kind of metrics they should hold those agencies accountable to. So they're paying all this money and they don't even know if the results are good. They don't really know what good looks like. And a lot of times they don't have a way of tracking the results either. They don't have the right infrastructure in place to even know, did that press or media outlet actually generate leads? They don't have the tracking in place. So I think the other thing they do is just spend money on a lot of expensive things that they can't really quantify or don't really have the fundamentals in place to maximize the value from.
So the thing that I see all the time is these folks, the founders, the CEOs, the executive team, they're not, as they say, stupid people. They're very bright, very gifted. So it's interesting that they will acknowledge this is our most important, urgent, valuable problem. And we're trying all these things and none of them work. And you went through that list. And typically the reason that they don't work is these are actually symptoms. And they're so focused on treating symptoms. And what they're missing is the understanding of the root cause. Mm-hmm. So I know that you're someone who brings a lot of insight into the work. So talk to us about what's the root cause that's resulting in these symptoms that they're focused on rather than the real critical item, which is what's causing it. What is that root cause?
For each company, it's a little different. One of my sayings is, I'm similar to a doctor. I'm not going to give you a prescription without an exam. So I start all of my client engagements with what I call a go-to-market audit. There's never one reason why you're not generating revenue. I've never seen the case yet where it's like, oh, it's just this one thing. If we fix this one thing, the whole thing works. There's almost always more than one problem. Because even if you generate leads, if you don't have the right processes, procedures, people in place, you won't close them. Or you could have all the right people and no leads. There's always multiple facets to the problem. But I would say the approach that I take with all my customers is I have a very methodical way of auditing. Who is your target audience, your ICP? Are the people that are your current customers actually reflective of who you're telling me your ICP is? So there's a check and balance there of, you told me this is your ICP, but here's what I'm seeing in terms of trends within your actual customers. So I think we need to refine this a bit further. So there's like a mark to market there of who are they selling to? Are we clear on that? A competitive analysis review. Are we actually differentiated in the market and how? And is our messaging clearly communicating that? Is our brand where it needs to be visually, verbally? For example, are you selling to enterprises, yet if I go to your website, it looks like a kindergartner? I know that even if your product rocks, if they go to your website, no one at Chevron is buying from you because it doesn't look like you can support Chevron. There's a methodical process that I go through of, do we have all the fundamental pieces in place? And if not, what do we need to do to fix those? And then that's a review of externally facing factors like brand, positioning, etc. But then also internally, do we have the right infrastructure, systems, tools to track and measure these things? Because if we don't even know what our baseline metrics are, we're certainly not going to be able to prove that me or anyone else is helping improve them. How do we get to a baseline? A lot of times, one of the first goals is getting to a baseline of what the metrics are today so that we know what we're working from to improve. Even though every company is different and it requires a thorough exam, I would say that most companies within my ICP have a few common challenges, which is lack of clarity on ICP and buyer persona. Usually it's too broad. It's something like, we sell to enterprise. And I'm like, that's not going to work. We need to get a lot more specific than that. So locating them on what a well-defined and articulated ICP and buyer persona looks like, and getting really clear on our positioning within that audience. So clarity and refinement around that piece is huge. Almost always some brand work is needed. And then the infrastructure is lacking, and particularly the data hygiene. So part of generating revenue is nurturing your audience, the database of contacts that you have, not just generating new contacts, but nurturing the ones that you already have. And so a lot of times I'll get in there and there's just tons of data hygiene issues. Like, there's deals created without contacts attached or companies attached, or the companies don't have industry data. So we usually have to do a big scrub of just our raw data and our pipeline data to even get to some semblance of what's going on and how we move forward in a sustainable way. So that's one of the biggest challenges. And then almost always my target customer has invested zero in marketing to date. And that's a big miss. Most of them have just grown up until their point based on referrals from their network and doing cold outbound. And they've just completely missed the mark on doing any kind of marketing or any kind of formal partnerships. That's just a missed opportunity that we try to capture. I would say those are the three most common amongst my audience.
You have enlightened your ICPs as to these three common issues, root causes, and their reaction is they do a bit of a face palm and say, I can't believe I never saw that, but makes so much sense. So now you're going to look at them and say, so guys, instead of doing that stuff that you've been doing that doesn't work, now that you get what the real issues are, what should they be doing?
So first is just, we do a cleanup. Again, we analyze their existing customers, really try to get clear on who we're targeting in a very specific way, document that, make sure everyone on the team knows it so that we're aligned across product, sales, marketing. Everybody's aligned on the same definitions that we're working toward. And then technology, again, it's a big cleanup. or implementing new technology to get to a better place to give us the tools and the infrastructure we need. And then the third thing with marketing is just helping educate them on what marketing tactics make sense based on their target audience. And I'll give them real life examples. For example, you sell to enterprise. Thought leadership goes a long way with enterprise, and this is what that looks like, and this is how we're going to execute upon that strategy. So educating them on how we can do that. And then I think like one of the biggest things I bring to all my engagements is being able to do all of this on a budget, because they don't have hundreds of thousands. Even though they've raised a lot of money, a lot of that goes to engineering resources. So there's a small sliver left for sales and marketing. They don't have tons and tons of money to spend on this. And so I've learned really scrappy yet effective ways to make a big impact. I think that's where I can help them understand we're going to have to spend some money, but it's going to be very attainable and affordable. And here's how we're going to know it's working. And here's how it's worked for me in the past. And here's how we're going to measure it.
So we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to learn a bit about Jess.
Is your pipeline inconsistent and rarely full? Do you struggle to stand out and communicate your unique value? The lead generation you've done or had others do for you has largely been a waste of time and money. You're stressed out and feeling guilty, worried that you're not living up to your own expectations or supporting those who matter most to you. Maven offers the only 97% done-for-you client acquisition service, trusted by top fractional executives and consultants. Our proven system takes care of your go-to-market strategy, lead generation, and sales, turning your expertise into a full pipeline and a high-converting sales process. With Maven, you'll achieve a predictable income, financial security, and the confidence you'll never have to take a job working for someone else. Contact j.kingley at fractionalmaven.com to discover how Maven can help you build a thriving business working with clients who value your insights and are a joy to work with.
Welcome back. We're talking to Jess Schultz, a Fractional Chief CRO stroke CMO, who works with venture-backed B2B SaaS companies, typically with about 1 to 5 million in annual revenue, to help them transition out of founder-led sales and build their marketing and sales organizations. Jess, let's find out a bit more about you. And here's where I want to start. What happened in your life, either personally or professionally, that explains why you're doing what you do today?
A few things. One, I was raised by a serial entrepreneur mother. She started her own accounting practice at 25 years old, which was 40 years ago. So it's quite impressive for a 25-year-old to start a business today. 40 years ago, even more impressive. 40 years ago as a woman, even more impressive. And she had no money. She just figured it out. And after she had her accounting practice, which was always her core business, she bought and sold plumbing companies, pawn shops. She's been the owner of so many businesses, but my whole life I've watched her just be an entrepreneur and have success and failure. And I think it made it more attainable or more realistic that I could see myself running a business and starting a business someday. So I think I always knew that I would go out on my own someday. I just didn't know until I knew what it would look like. And after, my career taking some twists and turns, my last job that I had before going out on my own was at a venture capital firm as an investor. And it was while working there with our startup founders, I realized how many of them had the same challenges with go-to-market. And I felt uniquely positioned to advise them. And I really enjoyed that part of my job as an investor the most. There's a lot of things you do as an investor: deal sourcing, diligence, fundraising. But my work with our portfolio company founders was my favorite part. And I just could tell that I was really making an impact. So I wanted to go all in on that. And so when I put in my notice and I had the idea for Amplify, but literally it was a 6-week, had the idea, built a website, and just did it.
Following mom's footsteps. Got to love that. So people who know you, what's one thing about you that they don't know, that if they did know, they would be surprised?
I think I come across really confident And I am, but I think people are surprised to find out that I get scared too. I think I do a good job of hiding that. I'm really sensitive. And again, I think a lot of people think, oh, she's such a ball buster. She's so very assertive. I just do things, but I still get really sensitive when I get negative feedback. I still get scared. I just do it scared. So I think that surprises people.
Oh my gosh, she's human. Can you believe that? We thought she was a machine. She's really a real person. What's next for you over the coming 12 months?
I've just coming up on my 3-year anniversary of my company in February, and I've learned a lot in the last 3 years, but I think I've really narrowed in on my ICP, my superpower, what I love to do, and I just want to double down on that for the next 12 months. I also get asked quite frequently by other fractional CRO CMOs for advice, so I think I might try to help do some kind of coaching just within that segment only, just within CRO, CMO space, like other people that aspire to be like me. But I don't know exactly what that looks like yet. But I planned 1 year in advance and that's it. I feel like every year I learn and I grow and I evolve so much as a person, and what I want in the future changes. And so I just try to take it 1 year at a time.
Well, I am sure that we have people in our audience, be they potential clients or colleagues, who might want to continue the conversation beyond just this show. So what's the best way for those folks to contact you?
Easiest way is email jess@amplifyscales.com, or LinkedIn. You can find me there, Jess Schultz.
I will put Jess's contact information in our show notes to make it super easy for everybody to reach out. Jess, I want to thank you for being a guest on our Fractionals Unplugged show. Be sure to subscribe to both our podcast on all the major platforms and our YouTube channel for our videos. Until next time, secure your independence with the freedom, flexibility, and control that you deserve without sacrificing financial stability and security.